We often try to draw lessons and thoughts from our experiences. That is the saying of trying to learn from past mistakes and avoid making them in the future. But is that statement actually true? And can you apply that statement to our own life? As someone who has experienced some mistakes, some failures in my life, I would say that I have comfortably gained the knowledge. If I had the chance to go back and do it again, I would comfortably say that I could have done it. I could have done it a bit better. Only just a bit, maybe. Maybe it's a lot better. But I guarantee that I can just do a bit better than I have just did my first time, which is I've never experienced that before. Having that previous knowledge makes us more competent and comfortable in those situations later in our life. And that is a fact because practice makes us better. That applies to everything in our life. Anything that you practice a lot makes you better. For example, if you run every day for the next year, you'll be a great runner. Practice and consistency is what makes as humans, it's the skills we gained from evolution. It is ability for us to actually learn skills and actually to maintain them in our brain so we can use it for the future. But a problem we encounter is our execution and our thought has a big gap between them. I'm sure you have experienced this before. You have the thought in your brain, you have the idea, but you just can't execute it. For example, from a very young age, schools taught us to not smoke, to not take drugs, and to not drink alcohol. That is what schools taught us. That is the moral concern, that is the moral guideline of the society, is to not do those bad things, including not committing crime, not hurting others. But why does so many people do it anyways? Some even from those higher education classes who have received those resources that those poor people have not received, but they still go and do the wrong thing, do the opposite of what society taught us, what our parents taught us, what our schools taught us. Why is that? That creates a new dilemma for us to understand. Is the execution of our body is very distinct from the ideas of our mind. Human mind is a complex thing. It can have hundreds of emotions, and we have different responses to those emotions. We can feel guilt because we did something bad, yet we still do it next day or the next week. That feeling of guilt is not strong enough to stop our body from committing that action because we feel satisfactory. We feel a sense of belonging, a sense of goodness from those actions which our body has intrinsically have the trigger to actually respond without the processing of our thoughts. That is called muscle memory. Our muscles can react to things in which they don't pass our mind. That is instinct of humans, and it is a product of human evolution. It exists in our body because it has the value. It has the value to carry us, to better fit us into survival mode, to actually help us survive. That's why it exists. Everything, every trait, every thought, every body part, every organ in your body exists for a reason. They are all products of evolution. So therefore, our body can react a sudden inputs very distinctly from what we would do if we have processed with our mind. But sometimes we don't have the time to process those inputs. We don't have time to process those experiences. So how do we deal with that? That is a very complex question, and I don't have an answer for that. You have the answer for that. The answer to that question is found intrinsically in your heart, in your body. You have to correlate your mind with your body through the idea of thought connection. Thoughts and knowledge are learned from past experiences. They are triggered in our mind, they are stored in our mind. We can activate it anytime we want if we have stored it in our mind before. But our body does differently. All we got to do is to escape that mind and integrate with the body. You got to fit yourself into the body, integrate with it, combine with it. That's when you get control over your body. See, human life is really short, and we really don't have time for regrets. Don't have time. Sometimes we even don't have time for another chance. We don't have a time for this opportunity to happen again. So you gotta catch it. But if we over-process our mind, if we over-process those inputs, we might have a very safe action, which is actually very normal to humans. It is a normal thing for us to act safely after we experience trauma, after we experience failure on the similar inputs earlier in our life. But life is so short. We cannot always stay in our safety net. Just like we said, we have to break out of our comfort zone. That's the moment where you experience the joy of life. The joy of life isn't staying in your comfort zone. The joy of life is expanding out, is experiencing new things, experiencing new emotions, experiencing new experiences. If imagine a regret you have in your life, and that similar event has occurred in your life again, what would you do? Would you do the same thing? Or would you do a different thing? See, if you have your processed thoughts in your mind processing before the event, you would have done a different thing because you failed before. But if you have a brand new mind, or if you don't even have a mind, you only have your body, that's when you experience life. That's when you experience failure again, maybe. But the next time up, you experience different things because life is never the same. And those events are never 100% the same. So something else might happen even though you've done the same action, even though you're being ignorant, you're being naive. But that's the joy of life. It's the unexpectability. We can't expect what's happening in life. It is mystery. Life is worth living because it's mysterious. You never know what you're gonna get, whether it's joy, it's pain. But if you thrive for the next time, you might get joy, but you might get pain also. But if you keep thriving, you'll eventually get joy, and that joy from exploration is so much more than just staying in your safety net. That joy is the reason why life is worth living and worth experiencing. Because life, there's so many new things to discover in life, and yet there's so much more. After millions of history from ancestors, there's still much more for you to explore.